Yes, I am saying that if you look at it in a slightly deranged way, Lanivas was technically pregnant with the true creator, but he aborted that fucker in the end, so the card works, right? Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Art and Recap. I'm your artist Faye, and today we are reading chapter 286 till 290 of Lord of the Mysteries. Let me remind you guys, shit went down in the previous chapter. Crested Sesimir was fighting the giant, and there were lots of blood and gore and explosions going on. He was there with two other Nighthawks, which I don't think was Dali or Leonard, cause otherwise Klein would have pointed it out. After all, he did recognize Sesimir from where he was watching at the clock tower. Leonard and Dali have a very unique fashion sense, so he would have definitely known it was them. Also, Loki, I'm making Klein sound like the fashion police, which he kind of is, especially in the early chapters. He was judging everybody left and right with how they're dressed. And yeah, anyway, Lanivas stepped out of the shadow to taunt Sesimir after the giant was defeated. And Lanivas let out the aura of a deity. In this chapter, we are back in Klein's POV. He was watching everything unfold from the clock tower. He couldn't really see the details of what was happening inside the building and really had no idea of how everything is unfolding. Cause as much as Audrey wants Klein to be omnipotent, he sadly is not. And he also doesn't have X-ray vision, so all he could do was observe the changes in his surroundings. This is why he got alarmed when all the gas lamps in the area extinguished themselves and everything became pitch black. Right after that, he felt an immense pressure. The aura of a true deity, well, not true deity, but the aura of a deity could be felt all the way to the clock tower where Klein was hiding. Do not look directly at God. That was the warning his spirituality was screaming at him, and it was a warning he heard when he tried to look at Migos with his spirit vision. But this time, it's even more extreme and terrifying. Klein was wondering what the fuck was going on, cause wasn't Lanivas just bestowed a little bit of the true creator's godhood? Why does it feel like an evil god was about to descend? Before he could stop the trembling of his body, he suddenly felt a deep, serene feeling of darkness engulf him. This was most likely the Nighthawks using a sealed artifact of the Evernight Goddess, or evoking her name, or using an extremely powerful Requiem charm. Even though Klein had calmed down, he didn't think that it's over yet. He took out his pendulum from his sleeve and divined if Lanivas was still dangerous at this moment. The pendulum swung, and Klein divined that while Lanivas was still dangerous, it's not to the point where he'll be throwing around power borrowed from the true creator. Since the divination hadn't failed, it also meant that Lanivas had been separated from the godhood. Klein thinks that maybe now he can actually do something and enters the grey fog. In there, he divined Lanivas' escape route and saw the man scampering around the sewers like the rat that he is. Klein quickly descended back into the real world to intercept the swindler. Inside the red brick building, the two unnamed Nighthawks that accompanied Sesimir were collapsed by the door. Sesimir was kneeling on the ground with stream of blood running down the corners of his eyes. Directly in front of him was the staircase to the second floor where Lanivas stood straight with the pure white bone sword stuck to his chest. The skin that once deformed to show the hanging man's figure was no more. It was now nothing but a void. Lanivas laughed suddenly and thanked Sesimir like a maniac. It turns out that Lanivas had planned this all along to get rid of the true creator that latched itself onto him like a parasite. He wasn't crazy enough to actually want to become the vessel of the true creator. Lanivas explained that he was tricked by the true creator into thinking that the god would descend in his spawn, but really, he planted a sapling inside Lanivas' body. Megos and her child was just a ruse. Get any of the Aurora Order members to protect her, since she's always been a red herring. And you know what? Now that he's explaining it like that, it makes sense. Like, why didn't the Order protect her when they knew that she was supposed to be pregnant with their god? Because, again, it's not real. She was a red herring. It's cause Lanivas was the true vessel all along, and once he realized that, he said, "Nah, fuck this shit. I'm not gonna lose myself and die for some god when I could be a god myself, right?" Anyways, the dude was monologuing to Sesimir like the two-bit villain that he is, and he explained that for the true creator to descend, he needed to be surrounded by negativity and despair, and there's no place filled with that much suffering than Backland's East Borough. That's where the Aurora Order dumped him when they found him. He initially wanted to start a protest to get the police to notice him, but after getting tortured by the Aurora Order for trying to start shit, he dropped the idea pretty fast. Instead, Lanivas acted like he was gonna lose control and was allowed to enter the sewers to vent. There, he used his tainted blood to corrupt the creatures, but unfortunately, the Aurora Order put a stop to it before any of the officials could investigate. Cause remember, the apothecary hired the crazy guy from their gathering to get rid of whatever the fuck is messing with his herbs, and because that guy died, the Order investigated what happened. After that, Lanivas killed a prostitute, making him the copycat killer Isengard mentioned, but the Aurora Order disguised the case as part of a serial murder case, so Lanivas continued to fail to get the attention of Beyonders. Now, out of opportunities, Lanivas requested the Order to send him their most radical member to watch over him. He knew that if he just waited, that lunatic would eventually get in trouble. And wouldn't you know, it worked cause the Nighthawks are now in front of him, right? Lanivas pulled out the sword from his chest and looks at it before saying how much of a pity it is that he couldn't take it with him because otherwise he'd be tracked quickly. And I'm thinking, is it possible that the sword is actually connected to Sesimir somehow? That unlike some of the other sealed artifacts that can be used by anyone, this sword is bound to his soul? Lanivas said his final farewell and attempted to stab Sesimir with his own sword, but before he could do that, he almost collapsed into a slumber. Lanivas realized what was happening and bit his tongue gently to stay awake and threw the sword at the Nighthawk by the door instead. Sesimir yelled and used all his strength to control the sword's trajectory. Lanivas used this to dash out of the building and dive into the manhole to enter the sewers. And you know what? I was wondering how Klein had enough time to divine his escape route, but now it's clear that it was because the guy was chatting up a storm to show off how smart he is. Anyway, Lanivas was very familiar with the place because it's his home. Suddenly, he stopped running and instinctively leaned back as a card stabbed deep into his chest. He looked up to see a medium-sized man wearing a clown mask approaching him. Also, Loki, did Lanivas just call Klein a twink in a roundabout way? Like, who describes someone as medium-sized? So, like, Klein isn't tall but he's not short either. He's not buff but not too thin. He's just an average-sized man. Is that what it is? Anyway, the moment Klein and Lanivas' eyes met, Lanivas ducked and rolled forward just as a tarot card shot in his direction. The card was depicted with an angel and a trumpet, and I'm like 99% sure this is the Judgment card. The card embedded itself on the wall, and Klein continued to throw several more while Lanivas jumped around to avoid getting impaled. The next card Cuttlefish described was the Sun card, and I'm gonna ignore the fact that it has 5 facial features, but I know it's the Sun card because it has a facial feature. The OG Rider-Waite tarot card usually depicts the Sun card with a face surrounded by sunflowers and a kid riding a horse. I'm pretty sure Cuttlefish knew the symbolism of the cards he's writing about, because why else would you add the detail unless you want your readers to notice that, right? The Judgment card is kind of a no-brainer. The fact that Klein opened the fight with it is saying to Lanivas that your karma has arrived, because that's basically what the Judgment card kind of means, you know? The Sun card upright has a very positive meaning, but we don't know if it's upright or reversed. But I feel like if it's upright, it's in Klein's direction, that would be a positive for him, and from Lanivas' point of view, it will be reversed. And according to the tarotguide.com, the Sun reversed means lack of enthusiasm, excessive enthusiasm, sadness, pessimism, unrealistic expectations, ego conceitedness, oppression, miscarriage, stillbirth, abortion. Not gonna lie, I was gonna make a joke about Lanivas being pregnant, cause I couldn't connect what the card got to do with the story until I realized something. First off, Migos can be considered to have a miscarriage. Second, wasn't it said in the text that the true creator planted a sapling in Lanivas? You know what seeds and saplings usually is a euphemism for? And yes, I am saying that if you look at it in a slightly deranged way, Lanivas was technically pregnant with the true creator, but he aborted that fucker in the end, so the card works, right? Anyway, just as Lanivas thought that he dodged the card, another one got embedded in his ankle. Turns out, Klein hid another card behind the sun card. It was a delayed card that Lanivas didn't notice. Lanivas realizes that Klein can foresee his movements because that was a very calculated outcome and move. The card that got embedded in his ankle was the star card. Now, let's see what the reading means for Lanivas. According to the same site I used before, the star in reverse means hopelessness, despair, focusing on negative, lack of faith, lack of inspiration, lack of creativity, boredom, monotony. Well, hopelessness and despair are very obvious telling. Now that his ankle is torn, it will be difficult for him to dodge Klein's attacks. Not only that, his injuries and entanglement from before started making him sluggish. Lanivas can't dawdle anymore either cause the Nighthawks are still after his ass and they've had enough time to regroup and track him down. Lanivus stopped in his tracks and let the devil card strike him in the neck. I was thinking that it would be a cool way to end him with a death or the full card, but I guess the devil card works too because he is a devil. But if the card is in reverse, that will be a positive for Lanivus. After all, the card reversed means detachment, independence, overcoming addiction, freedom, revelation, reclaiming power, reasserting control. And reassert his control he did because again he let Klein strike him on the neck. Cause the blood and wounds on his body all started squirming madly until numerous goosebumps appeared on his skin. He got himself an armor strong enough to deflect the next card Klein shot at him. Anyway, Lanivus rushed at Klein and Klein, expecting this, threw a fist at Lanivus's temple. They exchanged several blows, which was fine for Klein. His goal in the end was to drag the battle as long as possible until the Nighthawks arrived. Just then, a vision appeared in his mind. His intuition told him to force Lanivus to twist his upper body so that he can land a punch. And once that was done, Lanivus continued his assault, but Klein managed to use a charm. Lanivus dodged, but Klein followed, and Lanivus was like, wait, is this guy going to make us both fall asleep? And he finally realized that Klein was mostly buying time for the Nighthawks or the military to appear. Klein really had no worries about falling asleep because he'll wake up instinctively anyway, it's part of his plot armor. Once he's awake once more, he used his fist to break Lanivus's throat. The man stumbled and leaned against the wall. The pain broke him out of his slumber. Klein took out two tarot cards and stabbed them on Lanivus's eyes, and Lanivus did not let out a single cry. Instead, he tried to throw himself forward to make one last stand. Klein expected him to do this, so he just dodged to the side. Before Lanivus can land on the ground, Klein grabbed him by the neck and twisted. Lanivus slumped to the ground and asked slowly why Klein wanted to kill him. Klein said, "No reason," in a very indifferent manner. And finally, Lanivus took his last breath. Klein walked up to Lanivus and kicked him in the head until it slammed into the wall, creating a red and white patch. Klein started laughing like a maniac and said to Captain Dunes that they've saved Lowen once again. The clown potion had been digested completely. And damn, what an ending for the chapter. Not gonna lie, I did not expect Lanivus to die at this moment. I thought he might escape somewhere since, we still have 200 plus something chapters for the second novel, but I'm very happy with this outcome too. Anyways, in the next chapter, Klein wanted to get his tarot cards back, but because it's hella dark, they were in the stinky sewers after all, he couldn't see shit. Also, low-key, I just realized that was a pun. Pun not intended! He relied on his spirit vision when he fought with Lanivus, and because the tarot cards that he's using aren't special like the ones he got from the Nighthawks, he couldn't sense where they are right now. And time is of the essence with the Nighthawks and military fast approaching. Since he was wearing gloves and always had the cards next to Mr. Azik's whistle, it'll be difficult for the Nighthawks to find him anyway, so he's just like, I'm gonna, leave the cards here, whatever. He quickly checked if Lanivus had anything on him and found that the guy only had a badge that had a faint spiritual radiance on it. Klein pocketed the badge and then he threw a bunch more tarot cards on top of Lanivus. Then he tossed Mr. Isaac's whistle up and down a few times to make sure that no one could track him and then he left. When I read this scene, I kept thinking that this sounds like the MO of a serial killer, and that the Nighthawks and military will definitely think so too, because come on, what the fuck? Crested Sesamir arrived at the crime scene and found Lanivas' corpse and his head against the wall. Two tarot cards were stuck in his head, the Emperor and the Wheel of Fortune cards, while the body depicted the Chariot, Hermit, and the Death, along with some cards from the Minor Arcana. On the walls and on the ground were the Devil, the Sun, and the Judgment cards. Crested thinks that it looks like some bizarre ritual with Lanivus acting as the sacrificial offering, and all I could think of at that moment was, see, this is why people think the Tarot Club is a cult. Also, Audrey will be super excited if she heard about this news. Okay, let me see the tarot card meaning right now. So, let's see. Upright Emperor means older man, stability, dependability, fatherhood, father figure, structure, protectiveness, authority, logical, practical. Reversed, it means abuse of power, excessively controlling, rigidity, rigidity, stubbornness, lack of discipline, lack of control, absentee father, paternity issues. Well, we definitely know that Lanivas has been abusing his power. Editing Faye over here, I just realized that the Emperor card can also be a signifier to Captain Dunes, because Captain Dunes is an older man that Klein depended on. He was a father figure to Klein that was an authority figure and also was very protective of Klein. So I feel like it leads back to Captain Dunes too. The Wheel of Fortune upright means good luck, destiny, change, karma, soulmates, decisive moments, cycles of life, fate, fortune, upheaval, chance. And reverse is bad luck, upheaval, disorder, external forces, lack of control, disruption, unwelcome change, delays, setback. I'm going to take this as Lanivas getting his karma. It was his bad luck that he got involved with Klein. The Chariot is victory, overcoming obstacles, success, ambition, determination, willpower, control, self-discipline, hard work, and focus. But it can also mean forcefulness, lack of direction, lack of self-control, powerlessness, aggression, coercion, being blocked by obstacles. This is a successful run for Klein, and the reason Lanivas failed is because he was being too aggressive. I think Lanivas could have gotten away if he didn't try to kill Klein. He probably could have figured out a way out somehow since he's much more familiar with the sewers than Klein is. The Hermit means spiritual enlightenment, soul-searching, self-reflection, introspection, contemplation, inner guidance, solitude. Reversed, it's loneliness, paranoia, isolation, being reclusive, withdrawal, antisocial, restrictive, paralyzed by fear. I think the Hermit upright is definitely for Klein. The spiritual enlightenment part and self-reflection really fits well with the fact that he actually digested the clown potion completely right at that moment. The reverse is true for Lanivas too. The man had to withdraw from society because he was paralyzed by fear of losing himself to the true creator, which, understandable. And finally, the Death card. Upright, it means spiritual transformation, new beginnings, letting go, endings, change, transition, sudden or unexpected upheaval. The reverse, it's inability to move forward, fear of beginnings, repeating negative patterns, resisting change, dependency. I think this card is very closely tied with what Klein is going through right now. He's going through a spiritual transformation since he's going to become a higher sequence, and one of his goals has been accomplished. The next one would be to kill Incest Sangwil. As for Lanivas, well, he could have had a new beginning if he accepted the true creator, yeah? But he was afraid of it and kept resisting change, and honestly, I don't blame him. There were also the Devil, the Sun, and the Judgment cards that were mentioned earlier, and I talked about them already, so I'm gonna skip them. I think Cuttlefish really chose the tarot cards he wanted to highlight really well. It is a really good mirror between Klein and Lanivas. Or maybe I'm just reading too much into it. I do wonder if we're going to be seeing more cards in the future because, again, authors generally don't highlight things like this unless they want readers to actually look more closely into it. We like to hide little details here and there, just like how every character's name can also be important and hold a special meaning. Like, okay, I can't say much for Klein because Klein is actually a German word meaning small. I did some digging and Moretti is a beer brand in Italy, but it's also a popular surname in northern Italy because apparently it's like common for northern Italy to end surnames with an I, while the south goes with an O. Anyway, Moretti could be derived from Moretto, which means dark hair, so brunette, which is what the Moretti siblings are. So Klein Moretti means small brunette. That's such a cute name. Of course, authors aren't so detailed when it comes to NPCs or minor side characters. That'll take a lot of time to research to find singular names for NPCs that will appear maybe once or twice. But if it's the main character, then we will do our best to give them a fitting name. For example, according to behindthenames.com, which is one of my favorite sites by the way, Audrey is a diminutive of a name I cannot really pronounce that well. And it was the name of a saint of East Anglia, and also she was a princess. And you know who is like a princess and will most likely be a saint in the future? Audrey! And the meaning of the name itself is derived from the Old English word of noble and strength. Doesn't that fit Audrey's character? Anyway, you guys should check out the meaning of your names on the site behindthenames.com. It's really fun. Like, the meaning of my name in real life could be interpreted as bright snow, which is the reason why I have Yuki in my username, by the way. Faye has absolutely nothing to do with my real name. It was actually supposed to be Faye for fairy, you know, like Faye, F-A-E, like the fairies. But I didn't like the spelling of that with the rest of my username, so I was like, it looks so awkward. I'm gonna change it to F-E-I because I like the way it looks. It didn't even occur to me that it's actually a Chinese word until much, much later when someone asked if I was Chinese because of my username. By then, it was too late. Everybody was calling me Faye online. I was like, okay, I guess I'll roll with it. I mean, I probably do have some Chinese ancestry anyway, considering how I'm considered a Chinita in the Philippines, though I can't be too sure since I have no contact with my biological father, but hey, the looks and the bullying when I was young don't lie. Anyways, if you guys do check out your name, tell me, I want to know, share it in the comment section. Just don't share your real name like first and last name, just the meaning. We don't want your government name out in the open, okay? Let's not do that. Internet safety and all that, okay? Ahem. Anyway, back to the video. Klein quickly left the sewers, took off his clown mask, and walked quickly towards Eastborough. He summoned himself once he was in his one-bedroom apartment and moved all of the clothes that he wore that night back into the grey fog, along with any charms, herbs, or essential oils that he got. He also put the badge that he obtained from LANEVUS back there and used a spiritual flame to burn any clues that he might have left behind. When I was reading Klein do this, I kept wondering if he's also burning his underwear. Klein looked at the badge and noticed the tiny words written in ancient Hermes. You can join if you have this item. And Klein was like, what? Is LANEVUS part of a secret organization? But Klein was exhausted, so he decided to look more into it some other time. He descended and changed into a new set of clothes and just chilled there for the night. He was thinking of his next steps, how he needs to get stronger if he wanted to kill Zangwill. He needs to be at least a demigod if he wanted to stand a chance, especially with the sealed artifact 008 still at large. He's gotta work hard to become a magician too, but hey, at least he's got majority of the potion formulas now thanks to Rosago, so he didn't have to worry about getting those. At dawn, a group wearing surgical hats and masks came to the dock union's dormitory. They explained to the confused people that they discovered an infectious disease in the building and that they're providing free treatment for them. A dude named Kevin already died from the disease, and we find out that it's actually the alias Lanivas was going around in. The doctors did their job, and before long, people were vomiting putrid blobs of a bloody substance. At Empress Borough, Glenn visited Audrey, who asked why he's here so early. Glenn said that he was planning to go to the turf club but met Cans on the way and they got into gossiping. Upon hearing the news, Glenn rushed to share the tea with his BFF Audrey. Audrey asked what he heard and Glenn was like, "Girl, you know the Aurora Order, right? The ones who assassinated the Intis ambassador? Well, they were caught and several members were killed and a very large ploy was foiled as a result." Audrey was like, "Oh, I see." Because she thought it was news related to the true creator, but then she's like, "Wait a second. Doesn't the Aurora Order worship the true creator?" So she asked Glenn, "What ploy? Please elaborate." Glenn said that he didn't know exactly because Cans refused to say, except that it involved the swindler Lanivas somehow. Audrey asked if Lanivas was caught and Glenn said that, "Girl, the bitch is dead, but wasn't killed by the military or the Nighthawks. They found his body covered with tarot cards," and Audrey was like, "OMG, this was definitely done by Mr. Fool's Blessed." Audrey was imagining the scene in front of her. Lanivas lying down in the mud covered with rows and rows of tarot cards. And I'm like, girl, that's kind of morbid, but it's kind of tame compared to what Klein actually did. I don't know how Audrey will react if she knew that Lanivas was beheaded and his eyes pierced with tarot cards, also that they were actually fighting in the sewers with all the people's piss and shit splashing around during the battle. Then she wonders how the church and the military will think of this. Will they think a new secret organization has appeared? I think that we actually see hints of that at the end of the Donghua special, yes? They were filing a report and writing down that there's a new secret organization in town. I don't remember the ranking that they got. Was it an A rank? Audrey wonders if this is a fight between deities and if Mr. Fool and the true creator are considered arch nemesis. And I'm like, well, considering how Klein messed around with the true creator's shit a lot and pretty often, I guess so. Clint asked what Audrey was thinking about because she started to tremble slightly in excitement at the thought of being involved in a fight between gods. And Audrey's like, "Didn't you tell me to imagine the fight scene?" And Glenn's like, "Girl, you're kind of crazy." Clint wonders which secret organization could have possibly killed Lanivas, and Audrey was excitedly yelling in her head, "That's our Tart Club! I'm so excited! We killed someone! Yay!" No, she is super excited about all of this because it's like the debut of the Tart Club, right? She steered the idea away of it being an organization and said that maybe it's just an individual beyonder that's got beef with Lanivas. After all, Lanivas swindled a hella lot of people, right? So it's possible that he messed around with one beyonder that shouldn't have been messed around with. Glenn said that whoever it was, he likes their style of killing. That sounds like a red flag, my boy. And then asked when Sio and Force can get him the apothecary formula. Audrey told him to keep it down, but Glenn told her that other than the two of them, there's no one around except her dog Susie. In a room underneath the St. Manuel Cathedral, Dolly was upset. "Why wasn't I informed of this matter regarding Lanivas?" she asked. And I'm like, yeah, why? I wanted to see her fight and avenge Captain Dunsen Klein. Crested Sesimir told her that he was afraid she wouldn't be able to control her emotions and jeopardize the mission. He understands how she feels, and that there's also a Nighthawk from Tingen undergoing training to join the Red Gloves. He also wasn't informed because Sesimir had to eliminate all unstable elements for the good of the mission. And I'm like, I hate how logical this is, but I still would have loved to see Dali and Leonard in action. I was even hoping that one of his Red Gloves assistant was Leonard, but when Klein never pointed out that one of the assistants looked fruity, I was like, none of them are my boy. Dali did not appreciate that comment and was like, "Why do you think I can't control my emotions? I am a pro! I'll only get angry once Lanivas is caught." And then she described what she'd do if they caught Lanivas. Let me read it for you guys word for word. "If I had caught Lanivas, I would let him know that men can be weak too. I would make sure that a cold, rotten yet stiff corpse would be situated behind his buttocks. I would make sure that a pungent white bone filled with thorns would be situated in front of him. I'd make it so that those cold little fellows enter and leave his body wherever they can. Dolly was hell upset because she planned all that and they let him die. And when I read that rant of hers, I was like, wait, is she insinuating that she'd have a corpse fuck Lanivas in the butt? Like, Dolly, madam, hello? That's crazy! But also deserved. Sesimir waited for her to finish her rant and asked how long she's been putting up with it. And Dolly said, for a very long time. And then he turned to the other deacons and captains in the room and asked, got anything? Loki, I actually find it really funny that there are other deacons and captains in the room right now, and they all had to listen to Dolly's rant. I bet that they were sweating bullets upon hearing her rage, because goddamn, this lady she is angry, which is deserved. They killed Captain Dunes and also Klein. And you know, I cannot wait to have this animated. Oh my god. She will look fantastic, fabulous in her anger once they animate that. I hope they do her justice. Anyway, back to Sesimir asking if the others got anything. They said that after the investigation, the person who killed Lanivas is a member of a secret order, a Sequence 8 clown. However, they couldn't confirm this guess because the tarot cards don't seem like they're concealing something. They think that the final scene was more of a ritual or symbolism, and thus they suspected that they're from an organization they don't understand. Sesimir nodded and said, alright, we can start there and do a follow-up investigation. Any updates on the person who tipped us off? Another man said that they discovered it was a tip from a bounty hunter who was looking for Lanivas. Their companion was killed by a member of the Aurora Order and she was seeking to exact revenge when she found Lanivas at the docks. They also checked to see if she got any connection to the person who killed Lanivas but got a negative answer. She's in hiding right now and it's hard to find her. Then they asked if there's any issues with the reporter who was interviewing the people at the Union dock that afternoon, aka Klein. Another Nighthawk said that it was a fake reporter and he was actually a private detective who was investigating the murder of Cyber and that he found a lead at the dock union. This guess was backed up by Isengard Stanton. Sesimir said that he was confused by the lack of motive for Lanivas' murder and that the murderer definitely need their attention and they should follow up on this matter. In addition, the Aurora Order definitely don't have Beyonders who are only Rose Bishops or Shadow Aesthetic level in a big city like Backland. They'll definitely have higher Sequence Beyonders and that they'd be pissed that the ploy has been foiled. All Nighthawks should keep a close eye and stay on guard. The incident with Megos and Lanivas have revealed a problem to them. Industrial areas like Eastborough are hotbeds for the sense of an evil god. He sent his people off to investigate there and that he'll talk with the higher-ups about this issue. On the other hand, Klein slept in before going about his day. He returned home and around the afternoon, he went above the grey fog and notified the sun that the gathering was about to start. The gathering started with Audrey cheerfully greeting Mr. Fool and telling him that the simple mission has been completed. Klein said that he's already aware. Then he said that in places like Eastborough in Backland, they are such hotbeds for an evil god's descent. And Algar was like, what? How does simple mission involve an evil god? Algar wanted to know more about what they were talking about, but decided it's probably best if he just uses his connections in the Church of Storms to find out what happened exactly. The world chuckles and agrees. The people in Eastborough can only wander around and die of hunger and cold if they have no job. There's no doubt an evil god would use this as fuel for their descent. Audrey wonders why she doesn't know any of this. The newspapers never really mentioned any of the details the world was saying. They usually just gloss over the suffering of the people from Eastborough. She decided that they can't go on like this and that she'll have to manipulate her father into doing something about it. Meanwhile, Klein was observing Audrey. He pushed the world to open his mouth to steer her in the right direction, since he himself cannot be involved directly, especially since he has no political power over anything in Backland. Anyway, Algar handed over the last page of Roselle's diary he owes Klein. In the diary, Roselle discovered a problem. If high-sequence Beyonder objects are not sealed, they will subconsciously attract nearby low-sequence Beyonders of the same pathway. Klein thinks that it makes sense now how everything seems to fall into place. He eyes the red stars twinkling in the gray fog and wonders if the force attracting the seer pathway objects to him wasn't because of him, but because of the gray fog. And then on 16th of January, Roselle writes one single sentence. The taste of a demoness ain't bad. And I'm like, wait, did he get freaky with a demoness? Wow, Roselle is open-minded like that, huh? Congrats, King! Klein was also surprised and amused at what he read. He's like, wow, I underestimated you, Roselle. Anyway, 20th of January, Roselle wrote that he finished the second card of Blasphemy. He was thinking of where he should hide it. He plans to disguise it as a bookmark and insert it into a very valuable book. If the person isn't fated to have it, they'll just think it's an ordinary bookmark. They'll just focus on the book. He didn't elaborate any further than that, and Klein's like, bro, please, tell me which book it is. Then he turns to the members and tells them that they can start their discussion now. Derek said to World that the weapon that he got was excellent and that he's got enough contribution points to trade for the ingredients to advance to sequence 8, and he'll use the remaining points to get to the ingredients Mr. World wanted, and that the deal will be completed soon. Mr. World agreed with all of that and then asked again if anyone got any clues regarding the dark pattern Black Panther spinal fluid or the spring of the elves' marrow crystals. Alger said there will be a grand event on the Sonia Seas soon and that he'll keep a lookout for those ingredients over there. He asked what the world has to offer in exchange since he's sure he doesn't have the potion formula for the Wind Blessed and it'll be difficult for him to find it in the future too. Anyways, that is where the chapter ends and this is where the video ends. Loki, this is kind of like a big tonal whiplash going from the first chapter. I mean, not the first chapter, but the first chapter of this video, chapter 286 over to 290, where they're like at the Tarot Club meeting and we find out Roselle fucked the demoness. That is like a big tonal whiplash, which is fine. I really like these chapters, especially the fight with Lanivas. I feel like I was able to follow the fight a lot better compared to the other fights because again it's more like a hand-to-hand situation going on here, nothing too fancy going on. Yeah, so that was fun. Lanivas is finally dead. Applause, everyone, applause. Yeah, about the artwork, so I started it actually like months ago, I think around April, May, around that time, and I dropped it because I wasn't really happy with how it was turning out. I was art blocked during that time and I just could not finish anything at all. And the thing is, it was so close to finishing, I just needed to render it. And today I was like, I need something to showcase today for my Lord of the Mysteries video. And I thought, oh, actually, you know what? This doesn't look too bad. I don't know why I didn't want to finish this that time in April. So I was like, okay, let's just finish this. Let's render it. And this is how it's turned out. It looks a little bit too dark. And I am still going to be adding, like lighting effects and stuff like that, which you guys actually never see me do because my clip studio doesn't record the pop-ups, so you will just be seeing this canvas blankly while my mouse moves around and nothing happens except the colors changes because I'm playing around with the adjustment layers. So I usually cut off the recording during that time, but the artwork for this one here, the end result is like kinda insane. I changed so much at the end, so I will show it to you guys at the end of this video. But yeah, anyway, that is it for this artwork. Never delete your files, guys. You never know if you'll pick up something that you thought looked like shit a while ago and then come back to it and be like, oh, it's not too bad. So yeah, before I go, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps my channel out a lot. My commissions are open. My Vision link is down in the description below. Check out my story, Dreaming of Aurora, if you have the time. And finally, thanks to my patrons Robek, Vanarik, and J. Volchevalitska for the support. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!